Well, aloha kakahiaka, which is good morning in Hawaiian. My name is Peter Kay, and I'm here to welcome you all to the Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show. This is the pregame show. I'm here with my friends Dylan and Heidi and Scott. We're here just kind of warming up the audience for the next 5 minutes. If you're watching this on a recorded basis, you definitely want to fast forward about 4 or 5 minutes where the real show starts, or you can kind of hang out with us here as we do a little bit of small talk and kind of get everything going and do the microphone test, etc. So, Dylan, what's going on, buddy? I think Dylan, I'm going to ask you to keep your mic unmuted during this session because we want to hear the birds in the background. Fill us in, man. What's going on, buddy?
It's just a beautiful sunny day over here. You can kind of see it in the background. It's not the best lighting situation, but yeah, the birds we were just talking earlier before we got started. The birds are chirping. I don't know, they're having a party in I have a longang tree behind me. You can look up longang, what kind of fruit that is, but it's kind of like a lychee. You guys familiar with that?
Lychee, yeah, sure.
Yeah, but it's like a Chinese. It's called, I think dragon eye is what like the English name for it is, but yeah, really delicious sweet fruit. But the birds are having a party back there this morning.
Man, and I this is awesome. I gotta, first of all, I gotta give the kudos to Jim, who's been like, I think, the most loyal of all. He's always here. God bless you, Jim. Welcome, and get this one, everybody. We got Ray from Afghanistan. So Ray, awesome. I must be related to service, and so thank you, Ray. I'm going to assume you're part of our U.S. military in some way, shape, or form. Thank you for your service, Dylan. Dylan, are you in the National Guard or are you in the Army? You're in the serve as well.
Army Reserve.
Army Reserve. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you, Ray from Afghanistan. It's so awesome. Heidi, new setting here. We got we used to have the corner of your office. What's going on here? What are we seeing?
I decided to come out of the corner of my office.
Out of the closet, huh?
And sit in the kitchen. I'm actually at a home that I'm going to be hosting open house directly after the show. So I just thought I'd get here early. And I wanted to show you the ocean view. The surf is a little loud today. It's a little gray outside, which is unusual for Maui. So we appreciate the rainy day now and then. But I'm drinking Maui mocha coffee this morning.
Yes, what's the coffee, Heidi?
And so it's Maui mocha, and mocha is MOKKA. And this is a really special coffee. It was developed in Kaanapali, and it has these chocolatey, caramel, spicy notes. It's really great, I think, for Thanksgiving and fall and the holidays. So I got to go into Lahaina this morning and go to one of my favorite coffee shops. I have about 4 favorite coffee shops, but and pick this up. And yeah, great way to start the day.
I have my Starbucks mug with my whole beans, through the I forgot I grind them and I use my French press. So yeah, I'm with you, Heidi. Way to go, Scott. Yeah, what's going on, buddy?
Well, I'm back home now, and in the last month the sun has shifted, so I'm trying to avoid a little bit of the sun on the lanai here. My skin won't take an hour of sun tanning. It won't exactly be a tan. It'd be more red than anything. But
hang in there, man. White guy gets burned.
Yeah, but today's been a great morning. I took a few minutes. I jumped on a Biki bike down the street from me here, which is people don't know, it's kind of the public bike that you get out of the station here with an app on your phone. Did a ride around Diamond Head, jumped in the ocean, so I'm all revived and feeling good today.
Man, although I had the same roughly ability here, I'm jealous because I didn't do it at all. I just kind of just dragged myself out of bed and did my normal show stuff over here. Hey, look, it is that time. It is 9:00, and I'm glad everybody's here. I want to welcome you all again to the Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show. Thank you all. We got a lot of stuff to cover as usual. Put your comments in the description. Want to hear from you folks, and let's kind of get started with our normal thing. Let's do the old COVID update. Here's the thing I'm kind of seeing. Basically, it's we're still here. It's still working. I put a couple of screenshots over here of some things. There have been no spikes, and it's been 2 weeks. So if there were going to be, you would think you would think that if there were going to be spikes directly related to the visitors arriving, that we would have had those spikes. But if you look at that epidemic curve over there, it's pretty much been flat, which has been great. A couple of other news: Hawaiian Airlines, they've announced that they're going to be they are doing drive-through testing in San Francisco. You got to go to the Hawaiian Airlines website to get more information, and they're going to be having they're going to be adding more cities with this drive-through testing. So everyone's starting to ramp up. In fact, I saw story a couple days ago about United is ramping up their testing big time. So it looks like the airlines, who clearly have an interest in making sure that people are safe, are all kind of seem to be ramping up, not just for Hawaii, but really around the world. A couple of other updates over there. You see, well, let's talk real quick. Maui, the islands are all changing, and I want to get some feedback from you all around the table over here. Maui's got voluntary post-arrival testing. I believe it's free. Big Island had quarantine, but now you can skip quarantine if you're part of the whole program that we talked about at our last episode. So it looks like things are going along well. One thing that I wanted to point out was, look at that graph of mask wearing. Hawaii has a really high take-up rate in mask wearing, and we should talk about I've got some cultural explanations why I think that's the case. But anyway, Hawaii's got a very high mask rating. People are commenting that when they come over here, everyone's wearing their mask, which is, I guess, not the case usually on the U.S. mainland. Got the real quick theory on the hospital. Looks like our capacity is all good. We're not kind of hitting those high numbers that I've seen some stories of some hospitals, at some places around the world or the country are hitting capacity nowhere near that here. So everything looks good. So really quick, Dylan, is there anything you want to add? What's this sort of feeling like on the Big Island as it relates to the COVID thing?
So the one thing that's kind of a little bit confusing for folks, so it's different on the Big Island than the other islands. So just like all the islands, you do have to get the pre-COVID test from a certified provider within 72 hours of travel. But then when you land here at the Kona airport, you have to do a secondary test, and that's a rapid test that they have set up, and the county provides that. There's no additional cost. And I've talked to about 10 different clients and friends that have come in over the last couple of weeks that have gone through this process, and everyone pretty much universally reports that it's a pretty efficient and well-run process. It does take about 30 minutes to an hour after you land to go through the process. So it does delay your, getting your rental car or leaving the airport a little bit, but it's a pretty much straightforward process where you get off, you get your things and you answer a questionnaire, you go through the testing center, and then you get your results, and then you're good to go and you don't have to quarantine. So people have been happy with that have gone through it.
So basically, if you go through that, again, that whole Hawaii Safe Travels kind of application that we talked about at our last show, you do that, you arrive in the Big Island, you do a quick test, it's free, and you get the rapid test, and you're kind of good to go, basically.
Yep.
Excellent.
No need
Excellent.
for quarantine.
Excellent. Heidi, what's the feeling like on Maui? Is there anything is there any news or tidbits going on that's related to the COVID thing?
Well, I just wanted to mention Laie, which is a separate island, but it's part of Maui County. They had 0 COVID cases for a long time. And then all of a sudden recently, there's been a spike in COVID cases, and that island is shut down, stay-at-home orders right now because it's just really small, really remote. I mean, they want to protect the health of the people that are there. Now on Maui, ever since the 15th, I mean, we've definitely been getting busier. I hear, I would expect spending a little bit more time in the airport getting through everything, but I mean, there's definitely people coming here, and it's kind of exciting to have visitors back. And there's kind of a good feeling with people getting back to work and, getting a little bit more back to normal. I don't know.
The vibe is returning. We had a quick shout out here from Chad Eddie. Hello there, Chad. Aloha, back to you. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us, Scott. You're pretty close to Waikiki over there. Have you seen? Are the beaches still empty? Are they crowded? How's it feeling? And whatever else you want to add about COVID on Oahu.
Yeah. I've actually picked up a couple of clients down in Waikiki, and they've been here for several months in Waikiki, and saying how much they enjoyed walking around and not having anybody around. She says, wow, we really noticed the number of people coming back, but it's nowhere near where the numbers where we were before. So it's definitely picked up, which is good to see. I actually had a client come through San Francisco and do the United testing. And the interesting thing that he said, I said, how was it? And he said, it was easy. But the problem was the actual healthcare center or the health center that they have in the airport that you think that you would go and get the test from, that's not state approved. So by the state of Hawaii. So therefore he had to go to the center that's a mile away from the airport. So he physically had to leave the airport, go a mile away, get the testing done, come back to the airport. He had left himself a 5-hour layover window just in case to see how this went. He said it was very smooth, but in fact, he did have to leave the airport to go get that test done. I had another buddy who came through from Seattle here to the Big Island. And he says, as long as you have your stuff together and it's in order, he says, it's pretty efficient. They do a really good job. So in fact, they were even, because there was some confusion, he said they were even taking some test results by the non-approved places here in the beginning until they kind of got things settled out.
So so it really, the moral of the story here is, do your planning, make sure you got all the details. Again, if you look at the previous show, I pretty much laid that out and everything. Take a look at all the details, and you're gonna do along good. This is great. So hey, we got let's see here. Oh yeah, see Heidi, your fans are happy that you're back. Scott from Aloha from the Lone Star State. Good to see Heidi back representing the Valley Isle. Absolutely, Scott. We're totally glad. And I've got Scott covering Scott. Oh, that's kind of cool. There's Scott's. Anyway, okay. Well, whatever. Geeking out here. Sorry, gang. All right, excellent. The general feel is that it just seems that I think we're very sensitive, here in Hawaii about kind of government officials having their act together. We've had a couple of embarrassing stories over the past year or so. The missile alert and all this kind of stuff where we kind of know incompetence when we see it. And I must say, it feels like they've kind of got their act together. There's a couple of hitches here and there, but it seems like they've sort of got their act together, which is wonderful. Everyone's really happy about that. So this is the time. In fact, my wife was mentioning the other day, she goes, this is really the best time to come, like right now, because like Scott, right, those beaches are still basically empty. There's nobody there, right? It's a handful of people there, but they're empty. So this is the time.
Well, yeah, and in 2 weeks, I'm going to do a staycation here at one of the hotels because they're offering such good Kama'aina rates. So I'm kind of interested to see how that kind of setup is and arrangement is.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. Joyce, we've gone to Hapuna before and after state opening and went from empty to pretty crowded last Sunday. I'm worried more about this. And yeah, Joyce, you hope now that people know what to do. You hope now that people know what to do. Keep the mask on if you can. Obviously, you can't put the mask on when you're swimming in the water, but keep the mask on if you can. Keep your social distancing. Anyway, okay, let's move on, everybody. I want to welcome everyone and send us your questions. We are here. I've got the best people from the Big Island and Maui and Oahu to help. Let's go into talk about the real estate market update, man. And it has just been jamming. There's been some amazing stories about what's happening to Hawaii's market. Really, really, really interesting. So Dylan, fill us in. What have you been kind of sensing over the past 2 weeks since our last show that you kind of want to share about what's going on the Big Island?
Yeah, the numbers haven't come out for October yet, but just from what we're feeling and what I'm seeing amongst my team and other agents is that it's just totally crushed right now. Everybody is busy. So that's one of the things that if, we're trying to manage expectations with buyers is that everything is slow. So the escrow companies are backed up. The survey companies are backed up. The termite companies are backed up. Lenders are overloaded with refis. So the lending process to get a loan approved is slower. So we're seeing very little close on time, but there's still a ton of business going on. And we were just talking earlier, October is on track to be my best month ever in real estate. And it's kind of a crazy thing coming out of this lockdown. And, really all of these transactions started 30 to 60 days ago and they're closing in October. So, during the height of the lockdown is when most of these went into escrow, and it continues to be that way. The rest of the year is looking like it's going to be crazy. The last 2 weeks have just been like almost every single day new transactions are opening. So there's definitely no end in sight. And, that slowdown that everyone was speculating about for months and months and we've been saying isn't going to happen is still not happening. If anything, it's getting faster. So,
I really want to comment on that. And then Jim over here, who's been our most loyal listener, Jim, you've been, I think, on every single show that we've had since day one. So Jim would know. You can confirm or deny this, Jim. But, basically, everything that we've said, we've kind of made these predictions, week after week after week. One of the biggest ones, a couple of key ones was that, people were wondering, oh, is the market going to crash? And we're like, no, the market's solid. It's going to, if anything, it's going to go up. And then the other thing that we talked about, we said, look, we're going to be opening soon. You want to get in on this because there's going to be a huge rush of people, and boom, just like we said. So it's kind of been fun. And, our predictions are on video. You could go back and watch them. You could look at every one of those videos and you could see what we said. So it's kind of really, really cool. We either documented our bad or good predictions, and thankfully our predictions are good. There's another Heidi who's Heidi Dornfield. Aloha, Heidi. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Dylan, while I've got you on your segment here, we had a question that came up, a good one here. So by Pearson, given COVID and the high carrying cost until the economy recovers, what do you feel is the best investment for an oceanfront complex condo under $400K in Kona? 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom studio? Dylan, how would you respond to that?
I gotta assume that things will go back to normal at some point. So there is going to be, and I actually just put exactly what you're talking about, a little bit higher than 400,000, but a oceanfront condo into escrow 2 days ago. That it was funny because I wrote an offer on that same unit about a year ago, right before the lockdown, and it was listed at 600, and we wrote it for 550 because that's what I thought it was worth, and our offer was rejected. And then it comes back on the market a week ago for 550, and so my buyer got it for even less than that. So it actually ended up working out. But they're speculating that they're going to have a few months where things are going to be slow, but at some point the renters are going to come back, the tourists are going to come back. So it may be a good time to get a deal on, because if there is a place to get a deal right now, it is on condos where the owners are either cannot carry the carrying costs anymore, or don't want to continue to have that risk. And so there are definitely some deals to be had in the condo market, not so much in the single family home market, because there's just a lot of demand for that, and the market is really hot. So yeah, if there's any time, now's the time if you're going to look for something like that. Oceanfront for 400, that's nice, is going to be rough though in Kona. There are condos under 400, but they're not going to have a great view. They're definitely not going to be oceanfront, and they may need some upgrading. So
if you want a nice 1 bedroom, let's just say studio, if you want a nice 1 bedroom studio oceanfront in Kona, what should you expect to pay?
Just under 400. There's a few, like White Sand. If you're familiar with Magic Sands or White Sands, one of the great beaches. There's a small complex that exactly like that, where it's a studio just under 400. But they're few and far between. Most of them are going to be higher than that.
So if you wanted to kind of have a good pick, what would you say? 500?
Yeah, around 5. Okay, 5 and mid 5s
in the neighborhood of 5. Great, excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Dylan, and thank you, Pearson. We appreciate that. Let's go clockwise. Heidi, fill us in. What's been the market like? You're saying you're busy. What's happening in Maui?
Well, it's definitely been busy. Ever since the 15th, as travel has opened up, I have appointments every day with showings, and all throughout COVID, our single family home market's been super strong, and probably stronger than ever. Even things out in super remote areas, off grid, those things have been selling. Now the vacation rental condo market has been slow, but all of a sudden in the last couple weeks, I'm getting all these calls to show vacation rental condos, and people are looking for opportunities, and these owners that are selling, they have been paying all the carrying costs for months with no income. So, it could be a good opportunity, but I definitely, prices are strong and stable. So I always set the expectation with the clients. People looking for a bargain basement deal, they're not going to get one, but they possibly could get a better deal than before. So it's an interesting time, and a lot of people are moving around and moving here. So anyway, it's lots of fun, but be ready to follow all the COVID protocols and fill out the paperwork and show that you have a negative COVID test before any showing. We have a lot of things to do just to ensure that we keep people safe as realtors going around showing properties.
Yeah, that's definitely the safety factor is a real big deal. Scott, so here's what I'm hearing from Dylan and from Heidi, which is single family home market is strong. There may be opportunities in the condo if it's sort of a short term vacation rental kind of a property because of the financial difficulty. Scott, what's going on? What have you seen over the past 2 weeks of Oahu on the real estate market that you want to share?
Yeah, it's the same thing here, and I would say the COVID protocols and things have definitely, like Dylan mentioned, have slowed up a lot of the process, for the transaction side. But I would also say it's kind of, there's some interesting things going on in the marketplace. I mean, I did an open house on where I was last time in that Kahala home, which were listed just under 5 million. And I had 38 parties to the open house, normally for my first open house in that price range, I would expect 10 to 15 parties. And I had to have someone help me where, we had 5 parties waiting outside the door while two parties are inside, distance from each other, a lot of navigating. One party leaves, okay, you can come in. So to get 38 through was a lot. And so you see it throughout the entire marketplace, even on the high end, we're busy. And there's an interesting thing, just our inventory is down almost 50%. So what's available for buyers to choose from is almost half of what it was at the same time last year. Our number of sales are up 13% from last year. So there's a strong buyer demand and a lot less inventory in the market. So it's really starting to push prices up and making it challenging for buyers. They got to be patient because, you may miss out on 1, 2, or 3 properties that you go after strongly here in the meantime.
Yeah, in fact, I saw an article, Scott, that Oahu's median single family home price had a record climb, something like 13% jump over the previous year, something like that.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing that I just saw that I haven't seen before is I always talk about a list to sales price ratio. If you come on at 100,000, what's the percentage negotiation room that you should expect? And we're usually between 96 and 98%, and we just hit 100%. So on average, every single home that's selling on this island is selling at what the list price is. Now, that's not the case. Some get bid up and some are lower, but we're hitting 100% list to sales price ratio. I haven't seen that in a long time.
So that to me indicates that the homes are underpriced. If they're getting their listing price, they're right almost by definition, right? They're slightly underpriced. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it's supply and demand. It's
supply and demand. Yeah. Hey, we did get a question in from Jim, and Jim says, "This is for you, Scott. In and around Waikiki, is there an inventory of single-family homes, no connection to any HOA?" And by the way, he says correct, comma every show, which was to say that correct. Jim's been with us for every show. So anyway, Scott, what's do we have something for Jim? Single-family homes with no HOA around Waikiki?
Yeah, mostly because Waikiki is significantly older, and Oahu was built from basically Waikiki, Honolulu core outward. So your older subdivisions are in town, which most of them don't have a homeowners association. Kaimuki, Kapahulu, which are right next to me here, which butt up against Waikiki. Then you get Mo'ili'ili, University, Manoa, and they don't have homeowners associations. Neither does St. Louis Heights. There's a ton of them.
So the only question I got for Jim is, Jim, when are you coming out to sit with Scott and get that single family home without an HOA fee? All right, great. Well, thanks everybody. That was a great update, and I want to remind everyone this is the time for questions. We're going to take priority. We've got a bunch of slides lined up with questions that you have submitted to us prior already. But if you've got a question right now, this is the time. Put your question in the comments. I'll pick it up, pop it on the screen, and we're going to get to it. All right, let's move on over here to our first one here. This is Heidi, because you are back. You were out last week. I've been saving the Maui slides for you here, and this is almost got like Heidi's name on it. Small time. This is from Carla in Atlanta, Georgia, and she says, "We're looking to retire permanently to Maui in 2022. What is the best way to find a small-time realtor not interested in working with someone who is pushing vacation rentals or million-dollar properties, looking for something small that may have been well lived in and loved? Someone the locals would use, as we want to support local business whenever possible." Heidi, where would we go to find a small time realtor in Maui? Have any ideas?
Well, Carla, thank you so much for the question. I mean, I think it is really important to find a good match with the realtor that you're going to work with, and a match in personality and values. Just because a particular agent is a top selling agent, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the right realtor for you. I mean, you want a realtor who's going to be a good listener, to listen to, that understands your goals and needs, but also has good experience in the area of the market that you're looking to buy. A good realtor is going to be an advocate for your interests, and take time to help you understand the buying process, and they should not be pushing you towards any particular property. So how do you find a realtor? I mean, a great way to find a realtor is a referral. I'd be happy to talk to you. I'd also be happy to give you a recommendation, you know, depending on where and what you're looking for. Another way to search for real estate agents is on websites like realtor.com, zillow.com. You can look at agents in a particular zip code, read their past client reviews. That's a good way to look. Something else I wanted to note too is, even if an agent's associated with a bigger real estate company, real estate agents are all independent contractors. So we're essentially small business owners, local residents, people who live in the community. And another avenue for finding somebody might be calling a brokerage in the area and asking the office manager or team leader who might be a good fit for what exactly you're looking for, you know, and maybe you talk to a few people before you find a good match. But anyway, great question. Thank you.
Heidi, I have to say this. You've been a bit too wonderfully modest and impartial. Look, gang, let's be clear here. You're looking for a realtor in Maui. Heidi's your girl. She's right here. And you know, I'd like to have some. Can we get some comments? What do you folks who are watching now? What do you think? Would you go with Heidi if you were looking for something in Maui? Throw it in the comments. That's what I want to hear. But yeah, there's no question who our realtor is for Maui, and it's you, Heidi. That's just all there is to it. Okay. Hey, let's see. We got one that came in from Chad here, and this looks like a kind of a question for Scott. Chad, Eddie says, do you see that commercial real estate has any better opportunities? We're looking to move to Oahu and buy residential, but would like to purchase commercial also for either rental income or opening a business. Scott, how would you respond to that?
So first off, one quick second back, I had clients that I sent over to Heidi, and they closed the deal with her, and they were totally thrilled with her service and how she did. So
amen to that, brother.
Another one for you.
Got that right.
Yeah, as far as commercial goes, absolutely. I mean, the biggest strugglers during this time right now are businesses, you know, which is going to be on the commercial sector, retail, especially office space as well. I think we're going to see a shrinking in the office space sector because people are going to be more, you know, at home doing work from home, and you don't need as much space. So yeah, absolutely. The commercial side, there should be some very good opportunities coming up.
Well, I know like the commercial market it's going to be quite interesting. I mean, there's going to be a lot of, it depends on, you know, where exactly, Chad, you're looking at on the commercial market. I know there's going to be a massive change in the office market, high-end offices. That's a whole other topic, and we're going to talk about that one of these days. But you know, there's going to be a whole, there's all kinds of stories I'm catching from economists and from other places where, you know, mass changes on high-end office space, where big companies or companies that had, you know, 10,000 square feet are realizing that, you know, no one wants to come into the office now that we've been like, you know, remotely working with COVID. You know, who wants to come into the office if you can help it? So it's gonna be a lot of big shift.
I think that's the bigger the disruption, the more change and innovation you're going to see that comes. And I actually think we're going to see a significant change in the commercial side in new product, new ideas of, you know, how you handle space, period, coming down the road. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out over the next year or so.
Yeah, no, it's going to be huge. No question about it. Joe, welcome back, Joe. Good buddy, Joe. And Scott. Yeah, see, Scott's been working with Joe. It's great, Scott, Joe, to have you here on our Hawaiian Shirt Friday. And Jim, this is Jim's comment. I asked about some comments about would you pick Heidi as your realtor, and there's Jim's answer right there. Absolutely, positively, absolutely, Jim. Absolutely. And hey, from Joyce, Dylan, you got a fan. What made me fall in love with Dylan was his video online. Heard him talk, saw his smile, liked his attitude. I think videos are key. Yeah, Joyce, you're right. That's why we're doing this. It's like it's been kind of fun. We've been catching some comments from those of you that have I've been catching some comments from Dylan and from Scott about people that have contacted them and say, yeah, I feel like I know you guys because you know us. You're with us here every other week, and you have a sense of what we're like, and you get a feel for our values and where we're coming from. So it's really been a lot of fun. I really love it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Scott, this one is for you. This is from Mark from Santiago, Chile. Mark's given us a bunch of questions over the past. He said, Peter, on many occasions, you have mentioned Hawaii's high cost of living combined with often low salaries. As such, is it considerably more difficult to qualify for a home loan? Are banks more stringent with respect to the conditions they impose, like a higher down payment or higher interest rates, etc.? Is it easier or harder to get a loan depending on which island you want to live on? So this is almost like a statewide kind of a question. But Scott, why don't you get the ball rolling on that? How does Hawaii, I think, what Mark's really, I believe what Mark is really asking for is, how does Hawaii's loan qualifications differ from what you might find on the mainland?
In a sense, no. Most of the loans that people are going to do here are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guideline loans, which are set by more or less the government, but basically by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So that's a nationwide, more or less standard for how the loan has to be structured. So in that sense, no. Since COVID, it is a little more difficult to qualify for loans, just in the sense that banks want to make sure that your current employment is going to continue and you're not going to be adversely affected and you close on your property or your loan, and then the next week you're either out of a job or you've had a pay cut. So they're doing more checks and balances throughout that process, and they're scrutinizing things closer and more stringent. But in general, the loan guidelines are similar to what you would get on the mainland. If you're going portfolio loan, from a statewide standpoint, island to island, they're not really going to vary much unless it's down to the type of product you're buying. If you're buying a condo-tel, that's a completely different real estate product. So there's a whole different kind of loan package for that that's much more stringent, because the loan is more, that type of property is more risky.
Great. Thanks, Scott. I'm going to just open the mic up. Dylan or Heidi, do you folks have anything you want to add to what Scott's already said?
No, I mean that's pretty much right on. I mean, it depends on what time in history you're comparing it to, right? I mean, if you're comparing it to the and I think we've mentioned this before, and this is another reason why it isn't a good speculation that there's going to be a pop in a real estate bubble is the last time this happened back in 2007, 8, 9, when there was a crash. That was a big contributing factor, was very lenient lending guidelines. And I was a product of that. I bought my first house when I was 24 years old in college, going to college in the GI Bill with no income, and they gave me they gave me a loan for $250,000 to buy a house. And there's no way in today's world you could do that, because they fixed most of those issues with the lending guidelines. And so since 2009, everything has been pretty stable. So the drive up in prices and costs isn't really caused by artificial lending. It's not an artificial lending bubble where people who shouldn't be getting mortgages are. And so it's not any harder than it's been in the last.
Heidi, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I had a couple things to mention. One is in working with buyers that are relocating to Maui, it's really important to work with the lender and have a good plan, because if you're newly retired or changing jobs or changing industries, sometimes those things can make it more complicated to qualify for a loan. And it doesn't really have anything to do with being in Hawaii. It's just the change of job status. For independent contractors, lenders often want to see 2 years of tax returns in your new business, even if you were in the same industry before on the mainland. So it's something to plan ahead with. Now, the other thing I see with financing here is it's important to understand there's two parts of getting qualified for a loan. One is the borrower, that's you, that's your credit, your financial capability. But two is the property. Maui, especially in the condo market, Maui has a lot of unique properties and situations. There's properties that allow vacation rental. They might have timeshare. Does the owner own a large percentage of the development? Is there leasehold? Is there unpermitted improvements? I mean, there's all these unique aspects, and it's often to your advantage as a buyer and also to your negotiating advantage in presenting a strong offer to work with a local Hawaii lender who's familiar with the properties we have here and can tell you up front, okay, for this property, you definitely need to put 25% down because of this. And that can just save you time in the end when you're going to make your offer.
Thank you, Heidi. As you're going through this, I was wondering, because were you like a really good student in college? Because you come to these things like really prepared. You've just got it down. So it makes me think that you were like a really good student in college.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, but no, but with the lending, I deal with that so much, and it's so important. I mean, well, to me personally, when I have a buyer that's going into contract, I mean, I want it to be successful. And I do see a lot of other people going out there and making offers on properties here and going 30, 45 days into it. And then the lender says, oh, sorry, I can't lend on that property. So I certainly do everything I can upfront to, make sure people are successful.
You've seen enough hearts broken due to it falling out at the lending level. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, thanks, Heidi, for being. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, one comment on that is it's more beneficial for you to use a local lender than to use a mainland lender, because local lenders, for one, when you're in a competitive market like this, and if you have two contracts that are the exact same, but one's using a local lender and one's using a mainland lender, we're going to be more likely to go with the person that's using that credible local lender because they understand Hawaii real estate. That fail ratio, we have a much higher fail ratio with mainland lenders because they don't understand the Hawaii market.
Yeah, that's a great point. We had a quick question popped in from Paul. Paul says, what would it be like living in Laie if you are not a Mormon? Paul, all I can tell you is you'll probably be disappointed that everything's closed on Sunday. But other than that, I don't know if Scott, this is on Oahu question. Laie, for those of you who don't know, Laie is a neighborhood, a district on Oahu. It's near the North Shore, I say northeast corner of the island. It's a heavily Mormon community. There's the Valley of the Temples. There's their college, their school, which is out of my brain right now. But Scott, what else would you throw in about someone who says, look, I want to live in Laie and I'm not Mormon? What would you say?
You won't really notice the difference. Everybody's super friendly up there. That last development project I did is in Haula, which is right next door to Laie, and I spent a ton of time up there exploring the neighborhoods and whatnot. The main thing for me was the food land in Laie doesn't carry alcohol, so the Haula Tamoras does. So I would say you can go 5 minutes down the road if you'd like to have a cocktail every once in a while. But that's the main thing, is there's no alcohol at that food land in Laie.
There's no alcohol at the food land. That's the big, exactly. Yeah. And like I said, and that food land's also closed on Sunday. All of Laie is closed on Sunday. But other than that, you're going to be fine, Paul. You're going to be fine. All right. Let's go on to our next one over here. This is for you, Dylan. This one, I'm glad this came up because people have mentioned this a lot. This is from Michael in Seattle, and he asks, I keep hearing and reading about all the issues with mold and mildew in homes. Where is that sweet spot of elevation to avoid as much of that as possible? Is it Kona or is it Waikoloa, the wind tunnel at Waikoloa? Where's it at, Dylan? Tell me about mold. I mean, mold and mildew on the Big Island is a big deal in certain areas and it's not in others. What would you say to Michael?
I wouldn't call it a big deal unless you have like some really bad allergies towards it or something like that. But the two big considerations are geography, east-west, or elevation if you're lower or higher. So the east side of the island is, as we've talked about many times, the wet side of the island. So you're going to get a lot more moisture and humidity on the east side of the island. Pretty much anywhere on the east side of the island, doesn't really matter the elevation. But on the west side of the island, where it is drier, if you're in a higher elevation, 800 to 2,000 feet, that's kind of that rain belt where coffee like to grow. And so there's a little bit more moisture. It's not bad. I mean, I've lived in that elevation pretty much my whole life over here. And you don't really have a problem with, like getting in your walls and stuff like that. If you leave a leather purse in a cold, dark closet for a couple of months, it may get moldy. But none of it is like poisonous or, hazardous to your health. Like I've heard in the mainland, there's like black mold and issues like that is really toxic, but we don't really have those types of issues here. And if you end up, with some type of issue, we have a couple of very good contractors in town that can come in and take care of that. But it's not I wouldn't call it a huge issue that should deter you from buying in a certain area. But if you really don't like mold, then buy in a low elevation on the west side, and it'll be very dry.
Low elevation. So to avoid mold, low elevation, west side, Kona side.
Yeah.
Where would you say, just to contrast this, where would you say would be like the worst place to avoid with the highest mold on the Big Island?
Any place on the east side. I mean, the east side's wet. The whole Puna, Hilo, all the way up the Hamakua coast. It's very wet. So, but people will just put dehumidifiers in their house and stuff, and that helps pretty significantly too.
Get a dehumidifier. There's your solution. Okay, great.
But
Scott,
it's a tropical. At the end of the day, we're a tropical climate with humidity. Like there's no getting away from it.
Yeah, like you mentioned the tropical climate. I think I'm related to that, and maybe your property, Dylan, is like there's a lot of jungle homes in Hawaii where you're like this home and you're surrounded by the jungle, which is always encroaching upon you, or whether it's geckos invading or giant cockroaches invading or plants, etc. There's always stuff that's going on. I'm going to go clockwise. Heidi, are there any places on Maui that have a problematic issue with mold or mildew that are worth mentioning?
Well, up in Haiku and the higher elevations, and in East Maui out towards Hana, you just have a much wetter environment. So you'll have, potentially more mold over there. And basically everything Dylan said, you can just take that over to Maui and apply it. I mean, west side of Maui, lower elevations are drier. You'll have less concerns about mold. Buyers from the mainland tend to be really concerned about mold, and pretty much every home inspection I've ever seen has some little spots of mold somewhere in a closet where somebody left a wet boogie board or something. But I mean, that's not necessarily any kind of health concern. It's just, what is out here.
Yeah, and Scott, I don't hear of any mold issues. I mean, but I don't follow it that closely on Oahu. We have the same. All the islands have the same issue. We're wet on the east side, and dry on the west side. That's like a universal statewide issue. Scott, what is mold an issue on Oahu at all?
Not really mold, and it's not something you should be totally obsessed with or worried about. But obviously, the closer you get to the ko'olau, so in Kaneohe, the closer you get up to the mountainside, that's where the rain dumps. It's going to be wetter more often. You're going to have more mildew issues than you will any kind of mold. Kailua is further out on a peninsula, so it's further away, so you don't get as much rain. Olamana and Manawili would fall into that category. As you go up that windward coast and you're tucked up against the mountainside, that's where you'll get more of that moisture side. Tantalus, if you're up high on this side, on the Honolulu side of things, that's up closer to the top of the mountains. Tantalus and even Waikiki Heights in the higher portion could have more moisture content.
And thanks, Scott. And Joyce. Joyce chimes in. Thank you, Joyce. I believe Joyce lives on the Big Island. Closet mold issue, but pretty much solved by buying cheap small fan, attaching to a timer, and really helps. Leather mold, use pledge to wipe it down. Really deters. Live in Holualo. I can't say that right now. Near. Thank you, Don. Would you repeat that, Dylan?
Holualoa.
Holualoa, near coffee farms. I know I can say it, but I'm just like right now. I'm just on.
She lives in a beautiful place. I sold it to her. So
awesome. Thanks, Dylan, and thank you, Joyce, for chiming in. It's great to get like a, in addition to Dylan, who gives us the local experience, it's great to have someone else who lives there and gives us their direct experience as well, which is fantastic. So Stratster says, for a tourist, what are the risks of renting an illegal short-term rental on Oahu? Well, I'd say getting arrested would be the thing. Getting thrown out of the house, having it shut down, etc. Don't do it. Don't rent illegal short-term rentals. Do not do it. Not a good idea. People, it's kind of funny. On one hand, Hawaii is Hawaii's seen as sort of a liberal state, quote unquote liberal state. We've been politically, we're a solid blue state. Have been that way for 50 years. There is no Republican Party per se on Oahu, in the state, but at the same time, Hawaii's culturally very conservative. We follow rules, mask wearing, everyone's wearing their masks. There's like a strict sort of a social code that people follow. And, I think a lot of the locals are very sensitive to kind of law breaking. There's, one of the, if you're a law breaking visitor, you're not well liked. So I would recommend that you don't do that. Let's see. It's 9:42. Why don't we jump into our diamonds and deals section here while we still got some time, and we'll take some more questions. Make sure you get your questions in, folks. We're going to switch to our diamonds and deals part. This is the part where I've asked Dylan and Heidi and Scott to pull together some properties that they see as aspirational, some really cool stuff, just to let you get a feel for what's really awesome in Hawaii, either a diamond, something just amazingly gorgeous, or a deal, something that, something that's got some really great value. And so it's like a fun, enjoyable segment. Let's hit this first one here. This is 650 Aina Mahiai in Kaanapali, Hawaii. Looks like a $4.9995 $5 million home. Heidi, what is this?
So this is a brand new construction home. It's on a 5-acre estate in Kaanapali Coffee Farms. The home is single level, about 4,200 square feet. It has a 3-car garage, ocean and mountain views in every room. I mean, this is definitely that type of aspirational, just wow property. It's a really interesting development. Maui grown property takes care of all the coffee, so you don't actually have to work on the coffee farm if you live there. And then the owners in this community benefit from the income earned from selling the coffee, and that income is used to offset the HOA fees. So a lot of times the HOA fees are just covered from the profits from growing the coffee all around you. So your actual yard building site might be 1/2 acre to 1 acre, and then you'll have 4 acres of coffee growing around you. So anyway, kind of cool.
That is really good. So so that's that photo in the upper left here. Is that it looks like the house, as you said, is brand new construction, was just built, and it looks like there's just basically dirt around it that's waiting to be landscaped or planted. Is that the property?
Yeah, that's the aerial view of the actual property. Now these photos, these are renderings of other homes that were built by this builder. So these are kind of showing you what it's going to look like. But the home is expected to be completed by the end of the year, so they are moving along on it.
Oh, got it. Okay, so this is like under construction kind of right now, and these are artist renderings, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yes. Got it.
That pool shot looks crazy. That's, Scott, you had a great pool shot last week, but I think it's this one beats that pool shot, but that's awesome. Thank you, Heidi. Great property. What do y'all think of that one? Throw some comments on there. Let us know what you think about this property. Look at this one. We have all right. The Kailua Fixer-upper listed at $975. All right. So you see, thanks, Scott, for putting in the aerial view. You see how close you are to the beach. It's a short bike walk. for sure, or a short bike. Scott, fill us in. What is this?
Yeah, it's a little bit different than Heidi's listing, to say the least. No, this one actually has the potential for a couple of different options. Obviously, fix it up. You could do some yard work. The pull-up bar there must stay. That's my requirement. Have a little chance to exercise, but it's a 8,600 square foot lot in R5 zoning, which technically means you could get 2 attached dwellings on that property. Now, whether or not you could do that because it's down a private lane is up for question. I would have to go through my entire DPP checklist to see if this would be a good development property, but it's obviously a fixer. I know you could probably get an ADU in there, meaning a second dwelling, an accessory dwelling unit. But I look at, there's multiple opportunities here for someone to come in, modify and adjust, and at just under $1 million with the ability to bike to the beach and be in Kailua. So I see that as a good deal, good opportunity. I actually called the agent to kind of find out about it to put it to some of my investor clients.
Scott, just out of curiosity, what would be like the land value here versus the home value? In other words, is this or the condition of the home, is this kind of maybe a tear down kind of a thing, and sort of a tear down, and now you got 8,600 square foot lot's a pretty good size lot. I'm going to guess it's an above average size lot on Oahu. Is this a tear down project, or is this like add a second home project? How would you characterize this? You
could go both ways. Anything in Kailua 800 and up is essentially what you're looking at from land value, or with some kind of beat up structure on it. But you could go either way. It just kind of depends on where this home is situated in the lot, on how can you work around it, or is it just kind of in a funky enough spot to where it's preventing you from being able to do other things, and then you tear down, and then you could start over and potentially do two homes.
Got it. All right. Thanks, Scott, for this one. Let's move on. Dylan. Whoa. Hualalai Resort, 8.4 million. Man, what is this?
Yeah, so I haven't featured any of these on the show yet, but even though the Big Island kind of has a reputation for having more affordable real estate, we have some of the most expensive real estate in the whole state on the Big Island, and most of it is on this Waikoloa coast, where you have these resorts. This is Hualalai, there's Kukio, there's Kohana-iki, but you have these really high-end resorts. And we had the airport expand a few years ago to make room for all the private jets for when people would come in during the holidays and when they would visit. And sometimes you look down and there's 100 private jets, because these are the kind of homes that these owners are owning and living in. And this is actually kind of a more modestly priced one. They go all the way up to like 25 million in this area. But just as you can see, I mean, stunning, ridiculous views. I mean, beautiful, I mean, just high-end homes. This one is 4 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, 4,700 square feet on 3/4 of an acre. So pretty big piece of land. You got world-class golf course, world-class amenities, very, very private, very upscale. But this is just one of those really special places that Kona offers. And we have, the who's who of people from around the country own homes here, like Michael Dell, and I mean the list goes on of very famous folks that own homes and spend not a lot of time out here. But then these are also vacation rentable too, so a lot of them you can rent for $5,000 a night or something like that if you wanted to test one out. So super cool.
It's amazing. So what's that now? So I'm looking at this shot, Dylan. So this is out of the bottom one. Yep. Obviously, it seems like you're off the lanai or whatever of the house. Is that some kind of a lagoon in front of you? Because that's like a body of water, and then there's the ocean.
Oh, that's the pool. That's the pool. So if you look at that top, if you look at that top right, that's kind of a living room that looking out to the ocean, and then right outside of the living room, on the lanai, there's a infinity pool. And then that goes, golf course you can see in front of that. And then
that's an infinity pool. That's why it looks like it's butting up against the rocks, but it's not. It's an infinity pool. I got it. Wow, man,
and year-round sunsets. You're looking west, so you're gonna get sunsets year-round.
Man, that's 8 and all can be yours for the low price of 8.4 million. That's absolutely kind of a remarkable thing. Let's see, we got a bunch of time left. So folks, if you haven't had your questions answered yet, this is the time for you to kind of get that thing in. Let's take a common question. I get this asked from a lot of different angles, a lot of different times. And this is Andre from Maryland, who says, can I live on a retirement salary of $5,000 a month? This is a typical question. I get it in a variety of different ways, and there is no hard fast answer to it. Possibly not. Can you live? What I tell people on the, can I live on this much a month? What I tell them is that you have to look at compared to what you're currently spending right now is the real question. Typically speaking, Hawaii's real estate is about, give or take, national average double what you're spending on whatever real estate you're spending on now, like rent or housing or whatever. It's twice as much. Expense wise, groceries, I think it's fair to say that groceries are twice as expensive here too. I haven't done a recent analysis, but I know that our groceries are kind of expensive, twice as expensive. So right off the bat, those things are twice as much. So if you've got a retirement salary, I'm assuming that's a fixed income. It's not going to move off of $5,000 a month. What you'd really want to figure out is how much of that $5,000 a month are you spending right now to live? If you're spending, let's say $4,900 a month to live, I can guarantee you can't live on that in Hawaii, because Hawaii is going to be much more expensive. So it really comes down to how much of that spending that you have today can you cut? So that's the real question that you kind of have to ask yourself to see if you can do it. Now, can you do it on $5,000 a month? If you're single and if you have a home a condo pay for free and clear, and all you have to pay for is groceries, sure. But that's not everyone's case, and everyone has a unique kind of a perspective. So that's kind of my take. I kind of want to go around the table here to kind of see what you folks, I mean, I'm sure you've gotten these kinds of questions one way or another. How do you generally address this question? Can I live in Hawaii on this much a month without having any of the details? Dylan, why don't we start with you?
My first question would be, what is your housing situation going to be? Because if you can buy for cash and not have a mortgage, not have an HOA fee, and just pay your property taxes and, upkeep every year, you could possibly do it. I know I live a pretty modest lifestyle, but I personally, in my family budget, we spend just stuff that I must pay for every month. No discretionary spending is over $5,000 a month. So yes, I have 2 kids that eat a lot of food and stuff, but that's just for some perspective. I mean, you can live a pretty normal life and easily spend over $5,000 a month just to kind of make it, pay your bills, buy food, and that doesn't include any kind of, buying a new cell phone or going on a trip or anything like that. So it depends, but that's including housing. That's a big question, is what's your housing situation? If you're going to be paying a $3,000 a month mortgage, then you only got $2,000 to live off of. So if you can eliminate the housing costs, then you may be able to do it.
You may be able to do it. But again, to me, that's why I say relative to how much are you spending right now, right? Mm-hmm. That's the key. If you're spending $4,900 a month right now where you live, Hawaii, you definitely won't be able to afford, just because everything is so much more expensive, even if your housing is covered. Anyway, Heidi, how do you answer that question?
Well, I mean, I think what you said, as far as it really depends on your lifestyle. There are lots of people on Maui that live here for less than $5,000 a month. I mean, so it depends, what your housing situation is, what your lifestyle is. I mean, what I can share is when I relocated to Maui originally, I was living in Chicago. Some things on Maui are more expensive, but there's also a whole bunch of things that you don't need. I mean, I spend so much less on parking. I don't spend any money on taxis. I spend less money on clothes. I don't need any boots or mittens or snow removal services. I don't need any heating. I mean, I used to have a gas bill heating my house. I mean, I don't have that. So to me personally, it wasn't really that much different. I mean, I know my grandma was worried that milk would be too expensive and I'd have to move back to the mainland, but I don't drink that much milk, so it's good.
Don't drink. You're going to have to give up drinking milk. That's what I can say. Just if you're a big milk fan, yes, your grandma's fears were well founded, Heidi. Milk is way the heck more expensive. You have to give up that dairy. Not too much. I still get the yogurt, but I get it from Costco. Okay, Scott, how do you answer that question on the can I live on this much a month? What do you tell people?
Yeah, I think it's doable. I mean, one of the things in Hawaii that I've always marveled at, it's one of the joys that I've had for living out here. It's why my life is, I feel, is so full. Is I used to have a surfboard on the bottom of it. It said, "Thank God all rides are free." And I just love that, because there's so many, anything you're doing with the water doesn't cost anything, you know, and you go out and hiking, we're surrounded by such beauty here, and to just go outside in this, you know, the warmer weather and take advantage of the natural beauty that's here, doesn't cost you a penny. It's, and like Dylan said, if you can eliminate the housing or have, you know, our property taxes are on Oahu are some of the lowest in the country. So if you can manage that housing side, there's actually a ton of stuff, free stuff that you can do. You know, for me, I like to go to restaurants and stuff a lot. So, you know, eating out for me, I end up adding up on a fair amount on that side. But I think this is actually probably one of the better states and the easier states to be able to take advantage of free things and have a very
for sure
full
are
life
the best.
while doing it.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah, we had a couple of things that have popped in. Another frequent audience member, a frequent viewer, Stargazer. Thank you, Stargazer. Yes, gorgeous properties. I totally agree. They're just amazing. And yes, you do learn everything. Yes, Stargazer, I agree. This is a great team. I love their, you know, the stuff is diverse, and really it's because of you folks. Because you folks come on, you ask your questions, you submit them in advance. Those are great, and there's links on the descriptions in both the videos, the YouTube side and the Facebook side. Click on the link. If you want to have Dylan or Heidi or Scott help you with a property, you want to hit that link for sure. And if you've got questions. And yes, hi BB, hi back. We'll give you a hi back. Stargazer says, what are the percentage of properties with no HOA? Let's kind of stick it to single family homes as an example of that. Just really, really quick, a real fast answer. Dylan, what's the quick percentage, roughly speaking, of single family homes with no HOA? You're muted.
I don't know the exact percentage, but I would speculate probably 80% of homes.
80% of homes do not have an HOA. Heidi, what's your
the vast majority
don't? Heidi, what's your figure on Maui?
I mean, I don't know a percentage for sure, but there's lots of areas with no HOA.
Lots of areas, so lots of choices. You know, in other words, if you want to avoid HOA fees on a single family home, it's doable. Scott, how about Oahu?
I'd say somewhere between 70 and 90%
Okay.
don't.
So Stargazer, HOA, and I know that Jim asked this a lot about HOA. HOA, it must be a bigger issue on the mainland than it is here, but it's really not an issue. I think. What's that, Dylan?
But I also wouldn't look at it as a negative thing. There are many communities that have a very good HOA where it costs, you know, $300 a year, and they keep the community nice, right? They aren't broken down cars in people's yards, and the houses are maintained and the yards aren't overgrown. So it helps your property value. Sometimes it's in your best interest to have a reasonable HOA. I mean, there's also HOAs that are $1,000 a month, but there's really very few of those. The small ones are more common.
You know, actually, I was going to ask, we got a few minutes left. Let's kind of end it on this topic. I was actually doing some math just the other day, and I said, you know what, I got to ask Scott about this. So here's a question for me related to HOA fees. And so you're in a single family home. You're going to be moving out because you're downsizing because the kids have moved out, etc. You're not paying quote HOA fees. But we did a bunch of numbers, and we're spending a lot of money on maintenance and maintenance, property tax, water, etc., etc. Scott, what's the on Oahu? Is there some sort of a rule of thumb of what the equivalent is on a let's say a condo maintenance fee? Because you look at a condo maintenance fee and you see some condo maintenance fees at $700 a month, and like, oh my God, that's so expensive. But yet you're operating a home, a typical home on Oahu, whatever, in a let's say East Oahu area. Do you have a sense of a rule of thumb of kind of what you're really paying for anyway in quote maintenance fees for a house, and how that compares? How would that compare to the maintenance fees that you pay for a condo? Do you have any sense of that?
Not really, because it's different. Usually if you're in a homeowners association with a single family home, they're limited to front yard landscaping, common element utilities, electricity, meaning your street lights, or maybe it's a private roadway or something that they're responsible for maintaining. So you're still maintaining exterior paint, roof, windows on your home. You're still doing a lot of that. Hualalai in
exactly.
down in Eva Beach is one example of a single family home structure where the association takes care of the exterior paint, roof, insurance, master policy insurance, the roads, the landscaping, and that maintenance fee is, and it's gated too. That maintenance fee is almost $800 a month for those. And people get sticker shock, but then you got to look down. Okay, what would it take for me to maintain this over the years? Right. And
that's my point, right? I'm trying to figure that out, right? It's like, well, okay, wait a minute. I mean, how much are we kind of really spending anyway on maintenance for our home, and that we don't really kind of realize, but it's quote unquote a maintenance fee. You know, the roof's got to be replaced every whatever 20 years or whatever. That's a big expense, and how much does that figure out on a monthly basis and all that kind of stuff. So we're all trying to figure that out. Yeah. So. Yeah. All right. Well, let's look, folks. Okay. Well, listen, folks. Last call for the questions over here. This is it, because we are actually over time, but I want to take them all. So let's do this one here. Is anybody worried about potential job losses and foreclosures after January eviction ban is lifted? I think the majority of hotel workers have finished unemployment and are not receiving income. Yeah, you know, I don't know how to really answer that because no one's got a crystal ball. It really depends. There's so many things in motion. How quickly the industry comes back. You know, we're looking at, hopefully crossing our fingers for a V-shaped economy. There are a lot of programs that are still in effect. I think it's really, really too hard to say. I guess the first question I've got is anybody worried? So let's maybe just address that. So Scott, really quick, are you worried? Yes or no? As far as what we got from Zell, yes or no worried?
I'm not worried.
Exactly, not worried. You don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not worried. Heidi, are you worried?
No, but I would say some homeowners that have tenants in their properties that aren't paying are certainly worried. But we just have to see how it all plays out.
That's it. You got to see how it plays out.
That we're working in hotels and restaurants have moved during the last 7 months from Maui too. But then we have so many people wanting to come here. You know, I think it's going to balance out in some way, but foreclosures and things, I mean, they take a long time. It's not like we're going to see anything in January or even next year.
That's another thing. Foreclosure law in Hawaii, from the last, from my understanding is from that last crash, was really, really changed. It takes a lot longer to do a foreclosure. Dylan, are you worried about what might be coming up when the eviction ban gets lifted?
You know, there hasn't been any real evidence to point at thus far that should, cause any immediate worry. And like Heidi said, I think there's always going to be demand to fill those homes or buy those homes. And same thing, foreclosures, we won't, if there's going to be any type of foreclosure effect, we're not going to see that till 12 to 24 months from now. So in the near term, that's not something to worry about.
So it's nothing to worry about. I mean, so we're not kind of seeing it, falling off the cliff in January it's not like when the eviction thing gets lifted, there's going to be all these people thrown out on the street and then they're all going to have to leave. Scott, I saw a story this week or something like that mentioned that, and we had talked about this on the show about, people moving out, but there's a new class of people that are kind of moving in that are sort of either independently wealthy or can work remotely and things of that nature. Have you been catching any of that kind of going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in Kahala, where I brought that listing on 2 weeks ago, yeah, I've seen all the inventory evaporating, and I've seen a lot more in escrow now than there were before. And everyone I talked to, where'd your buyer come from? How'd they buy? Sight unseen? What, getting all the info. A lot of sight unseen stuff, and a lot of people coming out of LA and Hong Kong money and Japan money. Yep. Yeah. Definitely.
All right, Zell, hope that answers your question, folks. I want to first of all, I want to thank Dylan and Heidi and Scott. Thank you for being here. You guys really make the show awesome. It's really, I love the diversity of thought and the views. It's always something new. It's really kind of fantastic. And I want to thank everybody who's been you all here right until the bitter end. God bless you all. We have got you stayed engaged. Hopefully we had one. I'm going to bid you an aloha. I'm going to say goodbye. Let's go around. Say goodbye, everybody. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Have a good one, everyone. Aloha Friday.
Thank you.